everybody. Back to another edition here of Path to the Draft, presented by Nationwide. I'm Brett Lewis, here with our guys Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, our former NFL scouts, all coming to you from our homes as we continue social distancing. And guys, with all 255 picks of the 2020 NFL Draft in the books, I guess the question now, DJ, is how many prospects have you looked at for next year?
That's a donut. That's a donut there, Rhett. But I always say I'm going to give myself like 2 or 3 weeks, Buck, and by the weekend, I'm sure we'll pop it on.
Oh, absolutely. You take a few weeks off, you reflect on what just happened, but then you already are spinning forward to the 2021 class. DJ, I expect a mock draft soon. Really soon.
Yeah, indeed. Come on. When's that first one coming out? We'll get it soon enough. But let's continue that reflection on this past draft here by looking at one of the highlights of the entire class. The wire-to-wire expectation during the pre-draft season coming to fruition when the Cincinnati Bengals made Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow the #1 overall pick in the 2020 draft. An inevitability that was seemingly set in motion long before Cincy was on the clock, and a fit the two sides are eager to cultivate, as Burrow tells Ian Rappaport on the Rap Sheet and Friends podcast.
I think the direction that their head is going to fit me even more, and they're going to do things that I'm comfortable with, and that's a great sign. And I'm super excited to be working with them.
That's interesting. So maybe take a little bit of like kind of what you did with Joe Brady and incorporate it into the Bengals.
Yeah, just they had me put down, my top 10 plays that I had and send it to them so they can study them and see if they have them in the offense, if they don't have them in the offense. So I'm super excited about all that.
Let's look at our next-gen stats here, powered by AWS. Looking at the quarterbacks selected in the first 2 rounds and their next-gen stats scores here. This is based on size, athleticism, and college production. And Joe Burrow right up there with Tua Tagovailoa. No doubt those 60 touchdown passes in 2019 for the Tigers, helping Burrow to that top spot, with Herbert, Hurts, and Love following in that top 5. So guys, as we try to assess what to expect from Joe Burrow in his rookie season, I guess we also have to remember that Andy Dalton is still technically on this roster. Not sure if any of us believe that that's going to be the case come week 1 of the season. But DJ, how do you gauge your expectations for Burrow in his rookie year?
Well, the expectations have to start with, can you win the job? And I do think he is going to win the job. And what do you need to do to win a job? You got to be able to learn the playbook, which I think Joe Burrow is going to be able to do quite quickly. Son of a coach, he picks things up very, very quickly. So I think he'll be able to do that. I think you got to be able to perform. And I think when you look at the pieces they have around him, Buck, where he can distribute the football, spread the formation, get guys out into the route, a lot of the things he did at LSU, I actually think this group he has around him at Cincinnati is pretty darn good.
Yeah, DJ, I think the group is really good. And I think Joe Burrow is actually going to hit the ground running. I like what I'm hearing about Zach Taylor wanting to take 10 or so plays from LSU's offense and put it in the playbook. But then when you think about the weapons that he has, A.J. Green as a #1 receiver, Tyler Boyd as a #2, T. Higgins possibly being the #3, Joe Mixon being a big bang at running back, and then a rebuilt offensive line with Jonah Williams coming over last year's #1 pick, I think things are in place for Joe Burrow to have an outstanding rookie season.
And DJ, along those lines, as Bucky mentioned, of the team trying to get comfortable with some of the things that Burrow really liked to do this last year at LSU, from what you saw from him on tape in college, how do you see the Bengals trying to utilize that skill set that we've seen from Joe Burrow in the best way possible starting this season?
Well, I was talking to somebody who knows Zach Taylor very well, and he said, look, the great thing about what Joe Burrow did at LSU is all those empty formation plays, every team in the NFL has all those plays in their playbook, and they just don't all have a quarterback that can process that quickly to be able to function there. So Joe Burrow's proven that's where he's most comfortable. It's going to be seamless. Bucky mentioned the fact of taking some of those play calls and putting them in their own language. You're going to see a lot of the things at LSU. You're going to see a lot of those things with the Bengals.
Yeah, DJ, I agree with you. Like, I wrote down in my notes when I was studying Joe Burrow, I think he might be the best quarterback that I've ever seen operate out of empty formations. And so when you think about that, you think about adding tempo to that, the easiest way to get a young quarterback comfortable is to put him in his old offense. I think the Cincinnati Bengals would be wise to allow him to basically run LSU's offense.
Yeah, so again, no surprise to see the Cincinnati Bengals make Joe Burrow the #1 overall pick, although we did get a little bit of a quarterback surprise on night one, a three-tiered surprise, in fact, in Green Bay. Not only did the Packers select a quarterback in the first round, but they traded up to get Utah State's Jordan Love, sending a fourth-round pick to the Dolphins for the right to move up 4 spots and select the quarterback now in line to succeed Aaron Rodgers when that time comes. And we're already getting a new look at Love here, both past and future. But how far in the future before we see him in a starring role remains to be seen. The Packers did not see fit to draft a receiver early in the draft, which accounts for the third piece of that eye-opening first round for Green Bay. As you get a look at DJ's top 5 remaining receivers that were on the board when the Packers picked at 26. You had T. Higgins there, Laviska Shenault, Denzel Mims, Michael Pittman out of USC. All of these guys ended up going in the second round, with Higgins going at the first pick of the second round to the Cincinnati Bengals. So with that then, guys, I want to get DJ your biggest surprise along those lines from the draft. What did you see?
Well, for me, Red, it was the Chargers not picking Justin Herbert. I thought that would happen if Tua Tagovailoa was off the board. It was them coming back in to get Kenneth Murray. When they announced that they were on the clock, I didn't know who they were coming up for. But then when you see the selection and you see the makeup of this division with the Kansas City Chiefs, you saw the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders load up on offense to try and outscore them. And you saw the Chargers go with Kenneth Murray to put him in the mix on defense, see if they can find a way to slow down this Kansas City offense. So I didn't see that coming, but I really like the move.
You know, DJ, one thing that I didn't see coming, even though you tried to tip me off on it, Henry Ruggs being the first receiver taken, but I didn't expect the Raiders to be the team that took him. When I look at Henry Ruggs, I love the talent. I love what he can do as a playmaker. I'm just not convinced that he's a #1 receiver. When I look at their depth chart, Tyrell Williams, Zay Jones, Nelson Aguilar, I don't see an established #1. So I'm worried about Henry Ruggs being miscast as a #1 receiver when he never was asked to do it at Alabama. That could lead to a longer transition, a steeper learning curve. I just don't want him to be set up for failure by not being able to play a position that he's very, very comfortable with.
And along those lines here, any surprise if we're talking receivers that Jalen Reagor ended up going to the Eagles ahead of Justin Jefferson, DJ?
Well, I think that was about fit. So, you know, I'd heard the rumblings there about Jalen Reagor potentially getting into the first round, so I wasn't shocked he went in the first round. But with the Eagles, they coveted that speed on the outside. So I prefer Jefferson as a football player, but they didn't have that same vision for him as they had for Reagor.
Guys, certainly could have been considered a surprise when the New Orleans Saints at number 24 ended up selecting the only interior offensive lineman to come off the board in the first round, in Michigan's Cesar Ruiz. But you could also spin that forward to maybe one of the better fits of the draft when you consider the historical investment that the Saints have placed in interior offensive linemen and their ability to develop and select successful ones in the NFL draft, going all the way back to the beginning of Sean Payton's tenure. So with that then, DJ, what do you feel like your best offensive fit in this 2020 draft was?
Well, the night before the draft, I was connecting with one of my buddies at LSU that's involved in their football program there, and he said, man, Eric Bieniemy has been doing a lot of homework on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He loves him. And I started thinking about that. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Maybe they would trade back. I don't know if they take him at 32. Sure enough, they did take him at 32, and I love the fit. With all that speed to run everybody off and then to be able to check the ball down to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, let him work in space, something he was very comfortable doing at LSU. What a perfect fit there for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, that was a terrific fit because he does remind Andy Reid and some others of Brian Westbrook, so it makes sense. I'm going to go to the Baltimore Ravens and their selection of J.K. Dobbins as the best offensive fit. This is an offense that runs it down every opponent's throat with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, handing off to a variety of running backs. Those running backs averaged over 5 yards a carry. Mark Ingram is older. Gus Edwards is fine. J.K. Dobbins is an upgrade. J.K. Dobbins in this offense, man, he could put up big numbers as their feature back. You talk about an offense that was already loaded. They are explosive with J.K. Dobbins as the workhorse.
Yeah, and I love the fit of Jerry Jeudy to the Denver Broncos. I feel like his route running ability gives a young quarterback in Drew Lock the ability to count on where Jerry Jeudy is going to be in order to get the ball out on time. So that among the best offensive fits that we have. The 2020 NFL Draft doubling as a 3-day fundraiser with the Draft-a-thon will go down as the best addition ever to draft weekend when you consider the money raised for COVID-19 relief. Over $6.75 million raised by the fans during the 3 days, and the NFL family contributing over $100 million to help those impacted by the virus. You can continue your support through Wednesday with donations at NFL.com/relief. And now from 2020 to a draft from the past.
I'm Cam Jordan, New Orleans Saints defensive end. And when I think about one of the more funnier moments of being drafted, I think about
the New Orleans Saints select Cameron Jordan, defensive end, California.
After I'm drafted in the first round, 24th overall pick to the New Orleans Saints, I was down in New Orleans and was sitting with my D-line coach, Bill Johnson. We were talking about the future of the D-line. You know, he gave me a playbook, and we were talking about how, you know, our defense was going to be this year.
Welcome to day 3 of the NFL Draft.
We are now in round 4.
I'm in New Orleans sitting with my D-line coach. I get a phone call from my area code I don't know, but I pick it up. I'm like, it could be one of the scouts, it could be one of the new coaches that I don't know, it could be somebody local, but it was clearly a different area code.
Yeah, and Clint Bowling just went, which puts the Browns now on the clock. And
it was one of the Browns brass calling to say that they were going to pick, they would take me in whatever round it was, third round, whatever Jordan Cameron was. They're like, hey, we want to make sure you're hot in the line. We're about to take you for the next selection. And I was like, hey, I'll take two checks, but this is Cameron Jordan, and you got drafted in the first round, New Orleans Saints. All right, appreciate you. God bless.
And Jordan Cameron was just selected by the Cleveland Browns. So a new tight end in the mix for Colt McCoy to enjoy moving forward.
Well, the Panthers started with defense and carried that theme through their entire 7-member class, becoming the first team to draft all defense in the modern draft era, but no pick bigger, both literally and figuratively, than top defensive tackle, 6'5", 326-pound Derek Brown from Auburn. As we get to our top 5, presented by Nationwide, Bucky Brooks' top 5 defensive tackles here listed, and then where they ended up getting drafted, with Brown the first DT off the board to Carolina, but not the last in the first round, with Javon Kinlaw ending up with the Niners at pick number 14. Bucky's 4th tackle, Ross Blacklock, ending up as the 3rd defensive tackle off the board of the Texans in the 2nd round. And for more on the selection of the Carolina Panthers taking Derek Brown, our Steve Weich went one-on-one with Matt Rule.
All right, so Coach Rule, your first ever draft pick, Derek Brown, the defensive lineman out of Auburn. Just what went into the decision to go ahead and draft Derek?
Well, it was an easy one for us. You know, we kind of said before the draft even started, we didn't know if he would get to us, and we said if he was there, it was a no-brainer. He was the guy we were going to take, and and for us, he's the perfect combination. I mean, big men, could dominate the line of scrimmage. They're hard to find, guys like him, and it's a need for us. And I think you combine his production in the SEC with who he is, and then our need on the interior of our defensive line. It was just a perfect marriage.
Well, that all-defensive draft for the Panthers, getting high marks from our Daniel Jeremiah, grading the NFC South here. But overall, really solid draft for the entire division, with the Saints getting a low mark, but right there at a solid B. So, DJ, getting back to the top, though, how did the Panthers get top billing for you?
Well, I just love what they did, and it started what they did with Derek Brown, first of all, and that was a selection they made ahead of Isaiah Simmons. That was a choice. Well, they end up getting a player similar to Isaiah Simmons and Jeremy Chin. So I feel like it was a have your cake and eat it too type of draft there for Matt Rule and company to be able to plug in Jeremy Chin with all that speed that they covet. That's how he builds a defense. I thought that was the key value pick for them in this year's draft. And then you go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We know about what they did in the offseason with veteran market, right? You go bring in Tom Brady, you bring in Rob Gronkowski. That's a whole new look there. But I like the value pick of Antoine Winfield. We knew they needed to address the tackle. They did that with Tristan Wirfs. But getting Winfield to continue building up the middle of this team, somebody with the ball skills, the instincts, I just think he's going to be a great fit there in Tampa.
And then looking at the Atlanta Falcons, we talked a lot about their potential to try and move up in that first round. They end up standing pat in both the first and the second, end up getting a couple of players that fit some needs. You gave them a B+. How did they earn that grade?
Well, to me, it was a really solid draft for them. And A.J. Terrell gives them some size to match up with the big receivers in the division. But Marlon Davidson, with the versatility to be able to play outside, to be able to kick inside and play next to Grady Jarrett, it's going to be fun to see how they use him in this front. They bring over Dante Fowler. They've got some new life here in this front seven and a way to generate some pressure on quarterbacks. I think Marlon Davidson's a great fit there. And then when you go to the Saints, sure, they have the lowest grade from me, but they just didn't have a lot of picks. That's why the grade is where it is. I love the move of Zach Bond. Being aggressive, go get Zach Bond, somebody who fell in the draft, more than likely from the teams I talked to because of some medical concerns. But as a player, he's going to fit in beautifully in their sub packages on third downs with that group, with Cam Jordan lining up next to him and letting him go with Davenport. That's going to be a fun group to watch.
Yeah, they're a really fun group, and I think everyone they're still chasing the Saints. The Saints are absolutely loaded. They didn't need to do much in the draft to stay on top.
Yeah, and I thought, adding in Adam Troutman at the end of the third round might have given him arguably the best third-round haul of any team in the NFL there with Bond and Troutman. Let's move on now to the AFC South. Bucky, you graded the division for us. Take a look at the grades you handed out. A couple of B's and a couple of A's, with the Jacksonville Jaguars snagging the top spot with a right there solid 95-96 A. Bucky, how did you end up on that mark for one of your former squads?
Man, the Jacksonville Jaguars did a really good job of adding players that will help them change the culture within that locker room. You talk about C.J. Henderson at the top. He's a rock-solid player, a guy that can get it done. I expect him to be a number one corner from day one. But Caleb Von Chasen is intriguing to me because he is an explosive athlete with the quickness and birth and athleticism to be a double-digit sack artist. He has the ability to win inside and outside. And look, they're talking about whether they're going to keep Yannick Ngakoue, if he's going to be traded. He steps in. He's basically an Ngakoue clone. I like the pick. And then when you go to the Indianapolis Colts, what I like about them is just the overall toughness that they're adding to the squad. This is a team that, look, Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman takes care of the offense, but Julian Blackmon on defense gives them a versatile safety that can play in the box, can play high, dynamic player. I think this team got a lot better with their moves on draft day.
Yeah, and to get Jacob Eason in the fourth, just as a backup, that's a pretty good value, but then also the potential to be a successor at some point there at the franchise quarterback spot. Let's move on to the Tennessee Titans, who reel in a solid B here for you, Buck. What do they do to earn that grade?
When you look at the Tennessee Titans, I think they have really leaned into that physical nature that has really made them one of the tougher teams to face. Isaiah Wilson gives them a bully on the edges. And so you got a big man and a big man behind him in Derrick Henry. They can run the football and do what they want to do. Defensively, they needed to improve at corner. You lose Logan Ryan, you get Christian Fulton. Christian Fulton is a first-round talent, a guy who has all the athleticism that you want to see, just needs to play with a little more dog. I think he will discover that in Tennessee. And then when you go to Houston, I know a lot has been made about Bill O'Brien being the general manager, but I actually like what they've been able to do. Ross Blacklock gives them an energetic playmaker on the inside. But then Jonathan Grenard gives them a guy with heavy hands on the outside. I love his toughness, his tenacity. He fits how Bill O'Brien wants to play. This is a rough and tumble division. You got to make sure you have enough of those guys that can hold up.
Yeah, this is a division I think is going to be very competitive, guys. And I'm with Bucky. I really like what the Colts did. When you get Phillip Rivers and DeForest Buckner come in as veterans, and then you get guys like Michael Pittman to put around him in this draft.
After the draft presented by Nationwide, the NFL is now providing free complimentary access to NFL Game Pass for fans. Watch full game replays, previous seasons of Hard Knocks, and more. To sign up and for more information, just head to NFL.com/Game Pass, where next year you could see this guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running the rock for the Kansas City Chiefs. Was the only running back selected in the first round, coming with that final pick on night one at number 32 by the defending Super Bowl champions. Was a productive pass catcher in addition to his prowess in the run game last year for the national champion LSU Tigers. And with that, guys, it is time to build your case. Presented by the Home Depot. DJ, which rookie rusher will lead the league in rushing yards as a rookie in 2020?
Well, it's a combination of talent and fit. And when I look at Cam Akers going to the Los Angeles Rams, no more Todd Gurley, so that lead back role is available. Cam Akers is by far the most talented back on their roster. He's going to be the guy. So you've got the talent. Now you put him in a scheme that fits him beautifully. He ran behind a terrible offensive line at Florida State, a much better group here with the Rams. That stretch going game, Cam Akers is going to pile up a bunch of yards. He's my pick.
You know, DJ, I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. Two things need to be in place for a young running back to succeed. Talented offensive line, check. Veteran quarterback with game, check. Phillip Rivers. So when Jonathan Taylor gets an opportunity to run, he's going to run against some light boxes behind a powerful offensive line. I think he has a chance to be a 1,000-yard rusher out the gate. Look for him to do big things as the Colts refocus on being a physical team in 2020.
Two very capable candidates to lead all rookies in rushing yards for the 2020 season. Those second-round backs are going to be really intriguing with DeAndre Swift going to the Lions and teaming up with Kerryon Johnson there as well. And with that, the 2020 Path of the Draft season for our Daniel Jeremiah is coming to a close. Clearly, he's got more tape to watch on all the prospects in the 2021 class. But look, for everybody out there that just doesn't know, the amount of research, the amount of tape watched, reports written that goes into the work that he does, you saw it happen during the 3 days on the joint broadcast. Congratulations, buddy. Way to work.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
No question. For Bucky and I, though, we will continue this run here on Path of the Draft tomorrow. We'll see you back here at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with some more draft grades.